tribe. Hey, Tammy. Hello, darling. Purple. How are you? Brilliantly bankable. Where are you, love? I haven't seen you. Rose. Hello. Hi, tribe. Listen, guys. Today's video is going to be really quick. We went through all of that footage, and I thought we don't need 6 videos to prove my point on what I'm trying to say. Let's go in, chop and screw it, get the message out so we can move on. We got a video coming of Neil Long. We have a video coming of Sierra. We have a video coming of Kim Kardashian. We have so many great videos, even one coming for Young Miami. So many good videos, but I had to get this video out here to kind of set the stage for the overall channel for 2023. In any event, before we get deep into this video, you guys help me out and don't you dare laugh at me. Do you know the song? How does it go? It's 5 in the morning. I wake up and fight for my earnings. Do you know that song? Don't laugh at me, you guys. Do you know it? If you know that song, please drop it in the comments. It was playing in my office on like a shuffle of some sort. And when I tried to go back to capture it or catch it, I missed it. But it comes on around the same time, and you would think I would know to get the name, but for some reason, I just never get it. So I'm hoping that you guys know the song from what I was just singing to drop it down below for me. But that song is a vibe, darling. It's something about that. It's 5 in the morning. I wake up and fight for my earnings. Like when she says that, it like penetrates my soul. I feel it on a soul level, you know? Especially because I've been waking up at 5 a.m. for the last 20 some odd years. So that song really, really resonates with me. I think it's a Nigerian artist, if I'm not mistaken. But I tried to Google 5 in the morning. I wake up and fight for my earnings. And anyway, if you can help me out with that, darling, please drop it below. In any event, this video and the other videos that came prior, it came because I was talking to a male friend of mine, and he kind of matches me intellectually. I can go way out there and he can catch it, a group of us. But I had said to him, I said, why does it feel like the way women feel about themselves and their bodies, why does it always feel like a social experiment gone wrong? And he said, that's because it always has been. I said, that's not true. I would have picked that up. He's like, no. It has always been. You don't remember the brand Lysol? And I said, well, Lysol, of course I remember Lysol. We use Lysol. I know what Lysol is. He said, you don't remember their ads? Their ads were weird. Their ads were about like how women are going to lose their husbands because they're not, smelling good down below, and how women are not good wives if they don't use the Lysol product. And I said, oh, it was kind of like promoting household products. He said, no. Not at all. What makes it weird is those products were for women's hygiene. I said, hold on. Lysol had a female hygiene, a feminine hygiene product? Why don't I remember that? He said, no. What they do is they just change the uses of their products. And we went back and forth about me not believing this. And so we got this group of people on the phone, and we were going back and forth about weird advertising campaigns that were really, really weird. Some of them dealing with, if you're not thick enough, you're not big enough, then your husband's going to leave you for someone who's thick. And so skinny women were encouraged to gain weight, because now there's this new product that's being sold and pushed to women, especially since the Industrial Revolution and since the war. Women had to go back into the workforce to save the American economy, and that's a whole nother video. But in that whole that whole thing happening, women were now outside. You know how the kids say they outside? Women were outside. And so advertisers realized that there was a way to sell a product to a woman if they could link it to how she felt about herself, whether or not she felt womanly enough, whether or not she felt good about her marriage and or marriage, and whether or not she felt valuable enough. That was a market for advertisers and large corporations. And so essentially, when we looked at all the weird ads we kept sending each other, the rabbit hole just kept getting deeper. And I'm like, hold up. So when I'm looking at women today who are, BBL and women who, that back when I was younger, it was all about getting boobs or breast implants. And so now things have shifted. It really makes me think, wait a minute. What if this really is a social experiment gone wrong? And can two things exist at one time? Can there be a problem with modern women, but also could that problem with women been created by modern men? I wanted to know whether or not there was a link there. So that's where we're going with this whole series of proving that two things can be true at the same time. We don't like to admit that. But look at these ads I'm going to show you guys. Let's get into today's video. It's going to be about 9 minutes long. It's going to be short. And I believe what I'm trying to say at the end of this is what Elder Eden has been saying forever, which is you choose, right? So come follow with me. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to take Michael off the screen for a little bit. He's been dancing for at least 5 minutes. Anyway, this first ad that we're looking at here, it says, does your husband yarn at the dinner table? And just to kind of give you some context, and I tried to allude to that in my first video with Malcolm writing the letter to his wife, Betty. Because back in those days, it was completely okay for a man to discipline his wife. And so there had started to become a shift around 55, 56, 60, 65. There started to be a shift, and men were being pulled to the table about hitting their wives or beating their wives. And because women were now in the workforce because they had to be, these new ads started popping up. Not only did they start popping up, they became everywhere, and radio, and magazines. And so these images of, women needing products in order to save marriages, in order to be considered valued in the so-called marketplace. There was just some things that you just had to have. Now, this particular one that we're looking at here says, does your husband yarn at the dinner table? And it talks about, that first part it says here, the things women have to put up with. Most husbands nowadays have stopped beating their wives. But what caused, listen, this when you read this stuff, it really is troubling. And so when people say it was better back then, when I go back to these ads and I'm reading the times, not just what was really on TV, but I wanted to know what was in print. What was the headspace like back in those days, I actually went back to look at old ads that men would run looking for a wife. And I got so many statistics I'm going to try to share within this video. I'm going to try to get it all out in 9 minutes. I'm running out of time, but let's see. Anyway, this is a Heinz, the brand Heinz. This is an ad for Heinz. And what they're trying to do is tell women that if your cooking is not up to par, you're going to lose your husband. So what you need to do is buy our products. This ad here is not only troubling because it associates a woman's ability to be able to provide a nutritious meal to her family. It associates her inability to do that with needing their product. Feel where I'm going? Oh, darling, the ads get weird. This next ad is from a company that is selling the idea that in order for women to be wanted or sexually, attractive to men, they could not be skinny. So during this time, women were expected to gain weight so that men can find them desirable. And this is funny because now I'm going to link all of these together into where we are today with this whole, listen, I think you know where I'm going. But this particular ad said, you need solid flesh quick so that you won't be single. The messaging of this particular company is insane. The amount of advertising dollars they put behind this campaign and how it was everywhere women needed to be. In the kitchen, it was in her magazines, whether or not it was her recipe books. It was everywhere. Gain weight or lose your man. Now, so far, we've looked at an ad or an ad company that's whole purpose was to push the idea that women needed to gain weight to be attractive to men. And then there was another company that said, hey, don't cook nutritious meals like fruits and vegetables and things of that. Start feeding your man canned food and TV dinners and condiments, and that's how you're going to keep him. So if you can see here, the idea that women need to gain weight and to start using less foods that are prepared foods, moving her away from actually cooking, but more so into their products. When I say the American Revolution is probably what really, really impacted the economy and the American family, people don't want to look at that. They would rather look at the feminist movement instead. But if you could look at these two ads and where we are today, men will tell you women are career minded, women are obese and they are fat, they don't cook, and they never look at why that was. Well, guess what? The advertising companies were owned specifically by men. And when I'm talking about specifically by men, I mean men who drove the numbers for corporations. Gain weight was not something that was just merely a commercial. It was a campaign, darling. That means when I say it was everywhere a woman was supposed to be, because in those days, being in the kitchen was where you were supposed to be. Okay? But then when they took you out of the kitchen and put you into the workforce because women had to go to work because men was at war, okay? If that wouldn't have happened, then of course the American economy would have collapsed. But what we created or what they created is the domino effect. And now they say you're obese. Now they say that you're not in the kitchen and you're not cooking. But where did that stuff come from? If you know nothing about American history, you might remember TV dinners. TV dinners, Hungry Man, those things were being pumped through the radio, and when television came around, oh my god, it was pumped through television. And then of course fast food started to come up. And so here's what happened as a domino effect so far, okay? Before we get into the next ads. What happened when times began to change and fast food was now removed from the farm, but from prepared, ready to make microwavable foods, times had changed. Women were no longer in the homes, they were out at work. And they were too tired to prepare. So then, to keep their husbands, they were balancing that and food, especially once he had come home from war. Okay? And so now they're not cooking because they're out at their career jobs, and they're trying to get education. Okay, first jobs ever created for women was secretaries. Okay, and then the government tried to create these ideas on how to make breaks because women for some reason couldn't work a full 8 hours, so they thought. And so they introduced a break station so women can take a 15-minute break. And then they realized when we give women 15-minute breaks, now that they're now in the workforce, we get more productivity out of those women. So there's a lot of things that we do today that we have no reference to why we do it. You will say to your boss, I haven't had my 15-minute break, not knowing that that law was inspired and come from women just now entering into the workforce. And as a way to create productivity in women in the workforce, they had to create these break systems so that women could keep on working. Okay? So now that women are into the workforce, and the American economy is now trying to rebound back from war. Okay? And things are moving forward. And companies are now growing. Things are now becoming more industrialized. Companies are now selling products to the American people. Fast food restaurants are now popping up. Does it not make sense that the woman of today is not different than the woman of yesterday? Let's keep going. Well, I meant to say, does it not make sense that the women of today are remotely different than yesterday? And this particular ad, which is weird because in the 80s, we wore this brand, Van Heusen. Do you guys remember Van Heusen? It originally started as a Thai company, and their ads were really, really bonkers, okay? Not sexist, okay? Because sexist is just one level, but we're going to deeper levels of what we call programming. You know how they call it television programming? Well, this was advertising programming. This is how you creatively, how you socially create a norm, and that is by sending your message by way of by programming methods, media, television, radio, advertisement, magazines, those kind of things. That's how you create social norms. And in their advertising campaigns, this particular one said it's a man's world. And that is what they had promoted for almost like 25 years. Their ads get very weird. But we're not just looking at the it's a man's world portion or recognizing that. We're looking at the submissive nature of the woman at the bedside. It is not that she's just merely submissive, but what I see is a woman who is less than human. You are beneath me. You are less than me. That bending down at the need, begging for your attention, begging for your involvement, begging for you to see me. Do you see me? Look what I've done for you. I've done all of this for you, and I've cleaned the house. I look good. I smell good. But can you see me? This is what I see in this ad, and I saw that in most of their ads, and that is what they wanted to do. I know they call it predictive programming, meaning that you could pump out a message for so long that what will happen is people will start to create their own programming from the messages you've already created. And if we don't understand that the social norms that we had in the 50s, is what has set us up for where we are today, then I don't know if we'll ever be able to make the correlation. Now, submission is another topic. Equality is another topic. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about basic human rights. Understanding that when we say things were better back then, was it around the time where women were not seen at all? They were not seen as human beings who bleed the same color blood, who feel disappointment as much as you do. Women were seen as a sub-creature, so to speak. You are a woman. You're not human. Because if I see you as human, then I'm going to consider when I mistreat you or treat you less than human. But see, I have to see you as a woman. Because if I see you as a woman, then most things are passable. But if I see you as human and I'm human, then wait a minute. That's deeper than equality could ever be, than submission could ever be. Seeing you as human with basic human rights or birthrights, then now I have to consider how I treated you up until this time. We are absolutely beyond our 9-minute mark, but this needed to be said so that we can move on with our next videos. But some of these ads, like this one here, I love my husband far too much to risk getting dry, lifeless, middle-aged skin. There was an obsession with trying to maintain your youth because the idea that that your husband would leave you when you got older was absolutely the mode back then, and it absolutely is to this day. Older women are considered disregarded in our society here, and that's because of there's this obsession with beauty. And I have no problem with that because that's natural human condition, right? But it is how we use those natural human conditions to sell products. These ads were telling women, you need our products to keep your husband. You need our products to keep your husband. And if you don't buy our products, you're not going to be able to keep your husband. That's where I have the problem. It is that programming behind, and creating insecurities. And it's just so dangerous when we look at it. And to be honest with you, the many modern women or modern mothers or modern daughters as that I saw from the 1950s were insane. You would think we would have more today because that's the topic of today. Modern women is the topic of today. But when I tell you that the reason for this video is because guess what? There is nothing new under the sun, darling. They were saying that same thing in the 50s. You know why people say that? They say it for control. They say it for the same reason advertising companies created their ad campaigns based around what women valued the most. Women value their families. So if you want to sell a product to a woman, what do you have to do? Make her feel insecure about her ability to maintain her family. If you want to make a woman feel secure and sell your product, make a woman feel insecure about her beauty. If you want to make a woman feel insecure about her beauty, she's going to buy your product Now, there's no other country more of a capitalist country than America, okay? And that's what made America a superpower. Um, but it also clarifies that the country itself is designed for industry. Okay, if you were a corporation, you would do well in America. The unfortunate thing about that is that corporations have more of an impact on the social standards than we actually are aware of. And so truly there's no true freedom in all of this, because in order for industry to survive and to continue, there has to be a messaging alive and out there. And who do you send the messaging out there to? Well, you send it to your potential customers, okay? You send it to your potential customers. If you want to sell something, create a message, get it out there, send it out there. But they know how to do it. And today they've done a fantastic job of making sure that we are tapped in almost 95% of the time to two systems that are constantly feeding us with ideas on who we should be, how we should relate to one another, how we should feel about ourselves, how we should feel about each other, and what products do we need. We are constantly being bombarded by ads every day because we are connected, linked in. We are connected and linked into what was originally designed as social sites, so to speak, but those are actually just 24-hour ad campaigns. My darling, when you ask me what happened to the American family, I would say to you that it wasn't feminism that did that. It was the Industrial Revolution. It was big business. It was corporations. It was greed. The other thing that I want to make sure that I drive home today is that they say that American women, Western women, are not wanted. Men don't want to marry you. They're not making you wives. They're going abroad. Let me tell you what the truth is. The truth is America is not doing too bad when compared to China. America, when compared to marriage rates per capita throughout the world, is probably at number 13, and I'll show you some statistics on that right about here. So Americans are still getting married. They're also getting divorced. But more women are married than there are men. So that lets you know that women still believe in the institution of marriage. They still believe in family. Do not believe what's being pumped out there, because if you ask me, it seems like those messages might be from our ops. Until next time, be empowered, be inspired, and be well. Bye, guys.